Okay, good evening everyone. My name is Yazid, and today I will be sharing the story of Yasui, a Japanese American lawyer who stood as a powerful symbol of persuasive civil resistance during World War II. He was the first Japanese American attorney in Oregon, and during a time of intense racial discrimination, he challenged the constitutionality of wartime curfews that targeted Japanese Americans. So Yasui didn't just speak against injustice, he used the legal system, his personal sacrifices, and his moral clarity as tools of persuasion in the fight for civil rights. Yasui believed deeply in the founding values of the US: equality, due process, and democracy. To him, citizenship was not just a legal status but a moral commitment. He said, I am an American citizen who is not only proud of that fact, but who is willing to defend that right. Yasui rejected the idea that race should determine rights. He believed that government must be held accountable to its ideals. That was central to his persuasion, reminding people that America must live up to its promises. Yasui chose to deliberately violate the curfew laws, risking arrest to trigger a legal challenge. This wasn't just protest, it was a strategic. He used the the courtroom as a platform to argue that these laws were unconstitutional and racial discriminatory. He turned his trial into a moral and legal confrontation, hoping that through argument and example he could persuade the nation to reconsider its treatment of Japanese Americans. How he could do that? What allows Yasui to take such a bold stand? Legal knowledge. As a trained lawyer, he knows how to frame his case in a legal terms. Moral conviction. He was guided by principles, saying, I must hold to these principles. Community solidarity. He stayed connected to others facing the same injustice, drawing strength from them, even under incarceration. He wrote letters showing concern for others. His persuasion came not just through words, but through example, intellect, and heart. The question now is why he felt his sacrifices were necessary. Why was Yasui willing to sacrifice so much? He believed it was necessary to preserve the Constitution. Second, expose injustice. Third, set a moral example. He said it's only the principles of liberty, democracy, and justice that made America great. Yasui wanted his case to remind Americans what they stood for. even during war. His persuasion was patriotic in the truest sense. Courtroom and rhetorical strategies. In court, Yasui used legal logic, logos to challenge curfews, pointing out contradictions in the government's reasoning. He emphasized that these rules targeted citizens not for what they did, but for who they were. One powerful rhetorical question he asked was, can we call ourselves worthy Americans if we tolerate the destruction of those internal truths of American without an effort to preserve them? His words were not just legal, they were meant to stir the conscience of judges and the public alike. Yasui didn't stop in court. He spoke out publicly against internment, using pathos and ethos, emotional and moral appeals. He described himself not as a victim, but as a loyal American defending democracy. He encouraged other Japanese Americans to stand up and get involved, saying, as an American citizen, it was for a clarification and the preservation of those rights that I undertook this case. His persuasive leadership extended beyond the law. It aimed to build courage in others. Yasui's influence continued for decades. In the 1980s, he reopened his case to expose evidence that had been suppressed. This led to a government apologize and reparations to Japanese Americans. His persistence was finally honored when he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian award. Yasui showed us that persuasion is not just about speaking, but acting, sacrificing, and standing firm for justice over time. This political cartoon shows the same problems that Yasui stood up against, treating people unfairly because of their race and ignoring basic rights. Yasui's story makes us ask ourselves if we are really living by the values we say we believe in. Yasui's story is not just about the past, it speaks to the present. He taught us that persuasion can take many forms: legal arguments, public action, and personal sacrifice. And most importantly, he showed that standing up, even alone, can eventually change the course of history. Thank you for listening.